Okay, thank you for coming out. My name is Ken Parry. I'm the owner of Parry's Tree Farm. It's all strictly U-cut here. I don't do any wholesaling. So why don't we start off with introductions. Your name?
Parry Ranch. Dylan McCaffrey.
Riley.
Dylan Nutley.
Anthony?
Kristen Legan. Tara Legan.
Tara?
Skylar Butler.
You in the back?
Christian.
Chris? All right, welcome. So how many of you have parents that are involved in agriculture? Nobody. Okay. You.
Me.
All right. Excuse me. Well, basically, I don't know how you've prepared everything, but I'm just going to run through a quick little introduction on Christmas tree farming and that sort of thing. Oregon is the nation's #1 Christmas tree producing state, and probably in the world, but there's no statistics for that. And not only is it Christmas trees, but it's wreath material, bough material, that sort of thing, what we call the sub-product, okay? They're shipped all over the world. The sub-product bough material is also shipped all over the world, and they're usually cut as soon as we get some real cold weather, like in middle of October or Halloween, somewhere around that's when everything's the bough material starts producing, because it takes more time to develop that end product than it does the Christmas tree in a short period of time. The Christmas trees, there's 3 major species that are grown primarily for commercial production or on the retail side: Douglas fir, Grand fir, and Noble fir. Okay. Here I grow 6, 7 different varieties. I grow not only the Doug fir, Grand fir, and Noble fir, but also grow Nordman fir, Fraser fir, Colorado blue spruce, and corkbark fir. Primarily growers just do the 3 major species. However, the Nordman fir is becoming more popular because of its holding ability, and its longevity. Holding ability meaning the ornaments, the size, and the color. They don't have the fragrance that the other trees do, but the other part of it makes up for that, and they are the most popular here on the tree farm. Basically what happens is we start off, of course, by preparing the field. We'll use primarily a glyphosate, which is Roundup. It's biodegradable. We kill all the weeds out, go through and remove any of the stumps. When we prepare a new field, remove any of the stumps or whatever's out there in the field. If it's a virgin field, then we'll, with nothing on it, of course, you just spray the weeds and then go through and disc it and get a nice soft preparation, soft ground for the roots so that you get good survival. And plant the trees, and they're usually planted on a wholesale, and they plant either 5x5 or 6x6. Here I'll do 8 to 10 feet apart. Then the next step is some growers will let them grow for a year to let the roots develop and the seedling develop, and other growers will spray them again after or just shortly before they've grown, and survived, and make sure everything's doing good. We want the trees to be in the ground before the chemicals are sprayed, the weed killers are sprayed after they're planted, because it's a primarily pre-emergent herbicide, and if you spray that before, with the exception of glyphosate, if or Roundup, if you spray that before the pre-emergent, before the trees are planted, then what happens is the planters dig the hole and pile up all the herbicide in the roots, the trees die. Okay, so you primarily got to go back through and replant everything. Okay, so planting, after that for about 3 years, 4 years, we'll just let them grow and keep the weeds down for the competition every 2 years, 3 years. We'll do that, and then once the trees get about 3 to 4 feet high, they start shearing. Okay, and shearing basically means just go through with a shearing knife. It's a. Could you reach back there and grab that wood handle, that big wood handle there? This is the most common method of shearing. It's called a shearing knife, and it has to be very sharp. And what we'll do is we'll go through and just tip the edges of the trees and get them into a more closed-in look. Okay, that's called the California style, and it's primarily for the wholesale market. Yew cutters like the more open look. However, some trees just will not develop into that nice pyramidical shape without doing the close-in, the California style. Then usually after the trees are sheared, we'll go through and top the tree every year, and a lot of the trees don't like that, so they'll either make candles, and I'll show you out in the field. I think I have some left. You make candles, or you'll get a bud that sprouts up here and goes out kind of weird, so we have to go through and tie those up before they harden off, so they turn and go straight up. So that's done pretty much every year until they're harvested. And the most common size for the trees are 5 to 8 feet. Once they're developed into the right size, and of course they're cut and harvested and sent to wherever they go. Except on a retail side, then we just leave them go every year. We don't have to cut any until the yew cutters come up. It's a fairly expensive project or crop to grow, because it takes so long to get to that 5-foot stage, or sometimes 4 feet, but mostly it's 5 to 8 feet, as I said before. You can figure on 1 foot a year is what we like to keep. 6 to about 10 inches of growth a year on the top leader. If we don't do that, then the tree gets ugly. It gets gangly at the top, and although you do all the side shearing, but it takes about 8 years to grow a 5-foot tree. So you can figure 2 years. The seedling size is what we call 2.0 or 2.1, which means that it's grown 2 to 3 years in the nursery. 2.0 is a 2-year-old, never been lifted and trimmed the roots and replanted. 2.1 is grown 2 years in the nursery and lifted, roots trimmed, and then replanted for another year in the nursery, and then they pull them. So you can figure on 2 to 3 years in the nursery, and then they go through kind of a planting shock stage in the field. When they're planted at the tree farm, they'll just kind of sit there for a year to 3 years, depending on the variety of the tree, and not grow much. But once they become acclimated to where they're at, then they start really growing pretty nicely. The slowest growing tree is the Colorado blue spruce. Very seldom do we shear those, or at least here at my farm, I don't hardly ever have to shear them. The next slowest growing tree is the noble fir, and they will take about 7 years to make a 5-foot tree. They're very slow growing trees. The next slow growing tree is the Nordman fir, However, I have seen leaders 6 feet long on my tree farm. Then the next slow-growing tree would be your, or fastest growing tree would be your grand fir, and then the Douglas fir. They just go crazy. So they take a lot of sharing, as I'll show you. I forgot to mention when they're about 5 to 6 years old, at least here on my farm, I like to start fertilizing with a 0020, which is no nitrogen, no potash. Well, excuse me, it's a 10%, it's 10-0020, which means it's 10% nitrogen, no mineral content, and 10% or 20% sulfur, which gives them the longevity of the greenness. The nitrogen just gives them a little boost of growth. Okay. Okay, so that gives you just a basic overall run of how they're developed and how long it takes. This tree that we have here is a 10-foot Nordman fir, and it's probably 13 years old. So how many of you know about carbon footprint? Okay, a few in the back.
About carbon footprint. What does that mean, Chris?
Well, I know it's related to burning stuff.
Related to burning stuff, okay. Anybody else contribute on that one? Who thinks they have a really high carbon footprint? Meaning that maybe the way that you live your life puts out a lot of carbon dioxide, either directly or indirectly, into the atmosphere. Is kind of what it refers to, environmental impact. Okay.
Okay.
Take it from there.
I want to talk a little bit about artificial trees. Now, for those people that are allergic to them, that's the only way they can go, with the exception of the Nordman fir. I have a lot of clients come up that buy the Nordman fir because they don't have the fragrance, which is 9 times out of 10 what most people are allergic to, is the sap and the odor that the tree puts out. But an artificial tree takes 10 gallons of crude oil to make one tree, okay? Plus you have, and they're normally made overseas, like China, Japan, Korea, that sort of thing. So you have all the shipping fuel, and then the shipping, the fuel, once the tree gets to a dock, and unload it and go to the market, and Fred Meyer's, or I can't say Fred Meyer, that's no free advertising here. Anyway, so the artificial trees are good, but they really take up a lot of fuel to make and deliver and get it to the customer and so on and so forth. Whereas your plus they don't, of course, they don't absorb a lot of the carbon and purify the air like a natural or a real live tree will. And then you also have the fire hazard, from an artificial tree. They'll burn real fast. But there is also a fire hazard with the natural trees. However, with the what do they call these lights again?
Mini lights.
Mini lights?
Yeah, the mini lights or whatever.
Lights.
Yeah. They're a lot. They've become a lot more safer, and as long as people keep the tree watered, they're fine. They're also recyclable, 100%, which fake trees are not. Artificial trees are not. They'll sit in the landfill. Of course, they're made out of fuel. Byproducts is plastic. Artificial tree versus a natural tree or a live cut tree will not absorb, even though the tree has been cut, it's still absorbing water and thinking that it needs to grow, so they still absorb some carbon when they're cut. But a real tree will absorb 100 times its weight in carbon and produce oxygen back into the air. So a real tree is a good way to go. Is the only way to go as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Where is the star?
Yeah. Well, we. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Santa to bring the angel. Okay.
Do you guys want to get out your questions? I know the hot chocolate was.
How many trees do you plant each year?
I replant as many as I sell, and I sell anywhere from 800 to 1,200 trees a year. So I replant every year, and that keeps the farm, you know, in inventory. If I run out of trees, basically I'm dead. I have to wait for another 8 to 10 years to develop the tree again. So. Yes.
So how tall do the trees grow?
You can grow them as tall as you want. The most common size on the retail end is 5 to 8 feet. Once they get over 8 feet, they become an oddity. You know, we sell some that are 10, 11 feet, 12 feet, but over that, we usually will use them for bough material or something like that, and just let them grow. Can anybody tell me what another product of a Christmas tree farm is?
Wreaths.
Very good. We make a lot. We sell about 150 to 200 wreaths here, and that's one thing that we do when the tree becomes too tall. Rather than cut it and recycle it back into the tree farm, we'll just let it grow and manufacture bough materials or boughs out of that tree.
Is there a particular type of tree that makes it better wreath or more popular?
The noble fir is the most popular because it gives you that swirled look that you can have. Plus, it's very, very strong to hold up the incense cedar and that sort of thing. Can anybody tell me what other trees are grown for other products? It's just not noble fir or grand fir or Douglas fir. There's incense cedar that we use in the wreath material, and also for swags and garland material. There's grand fir that we use for fragrance. We sometimes throw that in. There's the golden cypress that we use. It gives it a little different color to it. Holly, variegated holly, evergreen holly, or English holly. A lot of people like that. You know, it's traditional type of things that people have that they use in their house over the last 50, 60 years.
So do you grow that here?
Yes.
All of those
Yeah, we're
pieces?
self-sustaining.
Nice.
The only thing we don't grow is the Princess pine, which comes from Eastern Oregon mostly, and that takes a drier climate to grow. Yeah, yeah.
You guys have other questions? As you're swaying to the Christmas music? You guys want to tour a little bit?
All right, so we go out and look at some of the trees. Okay. It's a 20-day season, unless you're doing a lot of bough material, that sort of thing. Now I'll cut you a couple of limbs here.
You guys remember what tree that is? What do you notice about it that noble?
How big the branches are and how differently it is from the others.
Okay, so maybe they're thicker in the needles, or maybe
A lot more big ones.
we'll have to compare them, right? Okay.
turned up.
More fill.
The needles turn up.
Needles.
Okay.
Do you guys see that? Look at that tree. Look at the needles. Did they turn up?
Yeah.
Okay. Compare that to a different kind.
A lot of these trees you'll see in landscape yards too, like the Colorado blue spruce. They're slow growing and they don't have to be shaped. Whereas and the corkbark fir also, you can see a tree right there that's never been shaped, and they're slower growing, so they develop naturally the look that you want in a landscape. Trying to think. You'll see a lot of Douglas fir. They're primarily for the timber industry. That's what just about all your lumber, in fact 95% of your lumber is made from around here. Plywood and all that. Turn the cell phone off. Okay, let's move on. Here's a Christmas tree, but it's pretty tall.
Be a big house.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. These are real heavy trees. Anything over 10 feet are just really heavy. So, all right, we'll go up this way. I'll show you some more trees. I want to get the